Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Todd's podcast. We got a great show for you today. Dan Chesnicka is the producing director and the chief executive of Theater Winter Haven. We're going to talk about the importance of a community theater in a city, what they do, how Dan operates, and how he's carried on Norman Small's vision for the community theater. It's a great show. We talk about how you can get involved in your community theater. And then we end up talking about how Dan was an entrepreneur at one point, his inventions and some of the fun things that he invented and how he sold them. So if you'll tune in today, I think you'll really enjoy our show. Thank you. Hey, welcome back to Todd's podcast, everyone. We have a wonderful guest today. His name is Dan Chesnicka. He is the producing director and the chief executive of Theater Winter Haven, one of Florida's most honored community theaters. He's been that since 2015 when he ascended into that job. His adult life has spanned athletics, student leadership, themed entertainment, entrepreneurship, and invention, which is going to be kind of interesting that we'll talk about. He's a graduate at the University of Massachusetts at Amherst, where he was a standout springboard diver for the UMass men's swimming and diving team. In his honor, Eli is wearing his UMass Speedo this morning.
You look good, Eli.
Sadly, he wears it every Friday for Speedo Friday.
Right.
And we're trying to break him of that habit, but he just thinks he looks good in it. You hold a few records in the 1 and 3 meters. You still have those records?
I think so. I don't know. That's what AI tells me.
That's what AI tells you. Also, you were elected Secretary of State of the Massachusetts Boys State. What year was that?
Oh, 1986.
Okay, so I went to Boys State, I think, in 76. I think I was elected dog catcher
at
Florida.
So we have that in common.
We have that in common. You also, you spent more than a decade at Walt Disney World, and part of that is just to be in the line at Space Mountain, I understand.
That takes about 6 years.
Yeah. Later, you became a co-founder and CEO of a product development company and built a national reputation as an inventor. He is best known for creating novelty products, including hitch critters and truck antlers, which I want to talk about. I found that remarkably entertaining.
That was part of our Redneck Road Gear collection.
Okay. Redneck Road Kill?
Road Gear.
Road Gear, not Road Kill, okay. He eventually was led back to the community theater, first as a volunteer, board member, backstage helper, performer, a theater parent, and then as Theater Winter Haven's producing director. All 3 of his children have been active in the theater's academy programs. And I think I heard you say this on one another podcast, which I actually pulled over to the side of the road and wrote it down. Theater Winter Haven's 4 stages reflect a belief that live theater is not only entertainment, but also a gathering place where people connect, participate, and build a stronger community. I think
wow, that must have been a good day for me.
And I was thinking, that doesn't sound like the Dan I know, but I'm going to give you credit for it. But it was, I think that's the spirit of community theater, is doing those kind of things. So what really drew you to the theater? Did you grow up as a theater kid, or was it as an adult?
Yeah, I was involved in theater as a kid. And as I look back on it, I can credit a lot of, you talked about a lot of the diverse things I've done in my life, and I can credit a lot of it to the accumulated advantages that you get being a kid in a theater. When you're 12 years old, 11 years old, 10 years old, often in society, you don't get the recognition that kids in a theater do.
Right.
When you're that age and you're in a theater working with an adult, your contributions are equal to the adults. The respect you get is equal to the adults. The work ethic you have to put in is equal to the adults. You're just not coddled. You have to come out with that product. There's a timeline, there's a process, and you have to be part of that. I think any kid that gets to be involved in a theater learns to work to deadlines, learns to work as a team, learns to listen, learns how to accept criticism, learns how to deal with failure.
Be part of a team.
Be part of a team. All of those things happen at a really young age, and it gives you some advantages that you can just build on as you get older and older. Some of those lessons that you learn, maybe not until your 20s or 30s, you learn as a preteen, and you're able to build on them. So when I think of community theater, I don't think of it as the theater business. I think of it as the community business. I think of it as a people business. So I look at my involvement in theater as a young person as laying the foundation for everything that came after. And that's what I hope to provide for the kids in our community. But not just the kids in our community, for the adults too. It's a lifelong process. I mean, the adults in our community get to essentially be in a summer camp. You know.
A fantasy camp.
Yeah, a fantasy camp. And they get to do all of that. And at the end of it, there's applause and there's recognition. And they get to be their best selves when they walk through the door. They can just drop everything that's happening in the world, all the pressures that come with your job or what's happening in your personal life. If you want to, you can pretend to be someone else for a couple of hours, which can be life-saving for some folks. Certainly has been for me at different times in my life. So the fact that this place exists is, I think, fantastic for our community, fantastic for individuals, especially fantastic for kids. And it is a great playground for people to be their best selves.
Yeah. And you just mentioned you can do it for a lifetime. I mean, you can only play tennis for so long, and then I guess you go to pickleball, then you sit on the sidelines, you can play golf. But I mean, if you are a baseball player or one of the other type sports, at some point your body gives out. But the theater, you can continue to do that and enjoy that throughout your entire life.
Throughout your entire life. And you get to do it with folks who are just starting. So all of that experience that you've gained, you get to imbue on the next generation. So yeah, the great thing about what we do there is that we provide lifelong experiences where you can go from being student to mentor and still be a student at the same time. So, and you have a blast doing it. So it's a really, really remarkable thing that we're able to do and unable to replicate anywhere else. Like I was involved in sports and athletics. And that gives you a whole lot of skills too, but it's a different kind of skill. You don't have to be as strong of a listener. You don't have to be as close of a teammate as that and replicate it day after day after day after day. Everything's different on a sports team every day, but here you get to learn a whole different set of skills and get to play. You know, there's a sense of play that you can do for a lifetime.
But there's so many other things that are involved other than just being on the stage. I mean, let's say you don't know how to act or you can't sing or whatever. Like both of my brothers, neither of them could do either thing. And
you're telling me.
We'll talk about that in a minute. But there's maybe some that are very good with their tools. And they could be building sets, or they're very good with technology or whatever. It seems like there are so many different avenues for young and old to get involved with the theater, whether they're performing or any of the other hundreds or thousands of other jobs that go into putting a show on.
Yeah, I mean, when people think about theater, of course, you think about the performers on the stage doing a thing. But we have electricians, we have carpenters, we have people who sell tickets, we have house managers, we have stage managers. We have so many different skill sets that are required to make any show go together. And I would say not one supersedes the other. I think if you were to poll actors, they would tell you that the people who really put together the show are the technicians, who are never seen. In fact, they wear all black all the time, so they can't be seen. But the great thing about it is, too, that the creativity that goes into every single one of those positions is immense. You know, the great thing about theater is it attracts weirdos. And I mean that in the best sense of the word. You know, the skills that, or the traits that might get you bullied in a high school are the things that will get you rewarded in a theater. No one ever got a leading role by being just like everybody else. So we attract people who want to march to the beat of their own drummer, you know, that they're maybe in the real world would be considered weird or strange or get bullied for, but not in a theater. In a theater, they are your best assets. And that's true whether you're on the stage or backstage. All of those creative elements come together to really put every show together.
It's a great safe place for people to be.
Right, and we get to do it every 6 weeks.
Yeah.
You know, it's like we create an ice sculpture. It's only going to last for a short amount of time, and then we build the next one, and then we build the next one, and then we build the next one, and on and on and on. So your creative juices are always flowing, and you're always challenged in a different way.
Yeah. It sounds like putting on a show is a little, with all the people that are involved are kind of like this podcast. All I do is talk. Eli does absolutely everything else.
Right.
Everything. So he is whereas you might have 100 people doing something, I've got Eli doing something. And his only reward, all he asks for is a new jar of jelly every 3 or 4 months.
And a new Speedo every Friday.
And a new Speedo. He's got a lime green one coming up this Friday, from what I understand, and a red, white, and blue one for the 250th anniversary of the United States. Do you like performing, or do you like being backstage? What's your preference? Do you do much performing?
I do absolutely none at this point.
None,
I do more,
no acting?
No.
Okay.
No. I do more backstage stuff.
Okay.
But that's really just to scratch my own itch. I don't consider myself either a performer or a technician. At this point, the people that work at the theater and the volunteers, we only have a very small staff.
Correct.
But we have 30,000 volunteer hours every single year. And virtually everybody who comes through the door is certainly more talented than I on all of these things. I think what I consider myself more is kind of an advocate for what the audience ultimately sees. I'm a fan first.
Right.
So I get to watch the process and maybe influence it a little bit toward what might work better for an audience member rather than an artist. I always have the audience in mind, whereas the artists and the technicians are looking at their specific task. So I don't consider myself really either at this point. I'm also a cheerleader. A cheerleader for the theater, but also for the community.
Right.
I always have to keep in mind the theater is the tool that we are using to serve the community.
Right.
It's not the end in and of itself. So if I'm working hard or we're working hard on something that no one sees, am I really serving my community? No. So I try to cast the widest net that I possibly can and meet people where they are for whatever type of entertainment they may want to have in the community. So it's not just a theater. There's a whole bunch of other stuff that happens there too.
Do you do any producing or directing, or are you really just kind of a cat wrangler trying to get everyone going in the same direction, and you kind of have other people that do that? Or
Well, I am the producer.
Okay, so
yes, I do all the producing.
Okay.
But I am not the director.
Okay.
So I'm not in the room with the people telling them, you walk over there and, your blocking is this, and try saying your line this way.
Okay.
As I say, there are people infinitely more talented than me in doing what that is. I'm more like the lineman. I block and tackle for those guys.
Make sure the show can go on, and
I make sure
everybody has what they need.
Yeah, I make sure we have the money to do what it is that we need to do. I make sure that we have the human resources in place to do what we need to do. I make sure that we're serving the community in the right way, so the thought of not having a theater in Winter Haven is unthinkable.
Right.
And if there's a problem, then I'm more involved in trying to fix the problem. But for the day-to-day, the more that I am involved in directing a certain show is to our disadvantage, is to our detriment.
Right. You're not out producing you're not out fixing the big stuff.
Yeah, I'm not going to be there telling somebody how to sing or telling somebody how to act or telling someone how to build a set or any of those types of things.
So if someone's listening to this podcast or just thinks about it and they say, hey, I would love to have a community theater in my town or my city, and they don't, what do they do to start one? Would they contact you? Would they go? Is there like an organization of community theaters?
There is a national organization called the American Association of Community Theaters, AACT, which they can go and get resources from that. But I will tell you that it would have to be a grassroots effort. It has to be bottom up. It can't be top coming down. If the mayor were to say, hey, we need a community theater in this town, it'll never, ever work because it requires such a broad base of community effort. And all community theaters are fueled by passion. I have a staff of 12 people, but 30,000 hours worth of volunteer volunteer
So money's just a component of it. You could have a rich benefactor that says, I want to do this, and maybe they hire something, but you got to have that fire in the belly of your community to make it successful.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk about money for an hour on this podcast.
We'll get to that in a little bit.
But
we'll get into Eli's pocket. He's loaded.
Money is never the top priority of a community organization.
Okay.
Earning money should never be the top priority. In fact, it is a balancing act on how to do everything that you possibly can do for the least amount of money to make it accessible to every member of the community that you can. So, having been an entrepreneur and trying to figure out what the market can bear for this product that I've invented, the exercise is exactly the opposite when you're working in a community theater. It's what's the least we can charge so I can make this as accessible to the most members of the community as I possibly can. So that's a lot of what I do too, is trying to figure out how can I cast a wider net in this community and make sure that I'm serving everyone, regardless of their income, regardless of where in the community they live. How am I able to serve my entire community? Because it's very easy to focus on retirees who, have their pension, and, you can do that and probably have a very successful theater, but that doesn't make you a very successful community theater. Yeah.
Todd's podcast is sponsored in part by Saunders Real Estate, your trusted partner in land and commercial real estate since 1996. With over 125 expert advisors located throughout the Southeast United States, the full-service brokerage specializes in a wide range of property types from farms and ranches to commercial buildings and development land. If you're looking to build your legacy with a confident investment, please visit SaundersRealEstate.com or call 877-518-5263 to connect with an advisor today. How do you decide on the shows that you're going to have for the season? You mentioned every 6 weeks. Do y'all have a board that gets together? Do people say, hey, I want to be a benefactor, I want to buy this show, or I want to be the benefactor for this show? It doesn't work that way.
If there's anything I'm authoritarian on, it is in the selection of the plays and the selection of the production teams that are going to do them. I like to keep that entirely in my bucket because I'm in charge of the culture of what happens at that theater. We talked about how do we serve the entire community. Well, I only get one shot to pick the selections of what's going to happen in a given year. And I'm very cautious on making sure that I'm picking plays that don't alienate a large percentage of our community, So there's a lot of people who think that theater should be a place where, ideas are challenged and where,
that shrinks your audience in a hurry.
Yeah, I really don't. I'm not that. I want to entertain people and meet everybody where they are. But I do want to do that for the entire community. I don't just want to focus on a certain segment. So when I'm picking plays for the main stage, my thought process is a little different than when I'm picking plays for our Norman and Linda Small second stage, is a little bit different than when I'm picking shows over for the Ritz. And all three of them have different missions. And we also have our Ghostlight Lounge, which is a whole thing in and of itself. So the play process, while I will certainly solicit opinions and I do bring it to my board so they can weigh in on that, I don't have a committee. That's not a process where I allow a lot of
democracy.
Yeah, that's not a lot of democracy. That's part of what my goal is.
But that's okay.
Yeah.
Because, that was one of the questions is how do you got to look at the social mores of a community, and I don't think our community would take well to the show Hair, just because I think from what I remember, there's some nudity in it.
Yeah,
not a lot, but I think there was some.
It's fun. Let's talk about Hair for a minute. So,
that was just an example. We can talk about any of them, but
Hair famously has a nudity. There's some nudity in the show.
Right.
So the question is, would I choose Hair, for example, for Polk County? I do reject the notion that the Polk County audiences are somehow less sophisticated than other audiences across nation. You know, I go to a lot of shows on Broadway, and I think our audiences are better often than the tourist audience that happens in Broadway. You know, we've had subscribers we've been doing this for 56 years. We've had subscribers that have been there for 56 years with us, you know. So they see a lot more plays and they have a better grip, I think, at least our audience, than most in, you know, most of these traveling shows or things. I'm pretty proud of what our audience can handle. That's not the reason why I probably wouldn't choose hair. But as I mentioned, 30,000 hours worth of volunteer hours. Most of them, a lot of them are from teens and from other audience. So then I would have to operationally try and figure out how to do this show with nudity without a big base of our labor force being part of it. So I probably wouldn't opt into it for that reason. And also there's, you know, we're in the middle of a culture war. So hair has a pretty significant political message that's associated with it too. I wouldn't want to dip my toe in that water right now just because I'm happy to entertain as many people as I want. I want the most conservative person to be able to sit next to the most liberal person in my audience and both of them go, that was a great time. I had a good time there. So I don't know that I would, at this point in time, want to do anything that smacks of any politics. You know, there's enough hot takes out there. All of my takes are cold takes. I have no hot takes. Everybody can have an opinion. I just want people to come together and experience something that they all enjoy together, the whole community. So I don't know if I would be willing to really bite off anything that's polarizing. In fact, I want to do the opposite. I want to bring people together in this moment in time in our history. I want a place where people can come together. I don't want to do anything to...
There's enough other theaters that can do that. Community theater doesn't need to do it.
Yeah, if you want controversy, there's plenty of places that are going to serve that to you. And finally, you know, I'm funded in part by the state, by the county. I'm in city buildings, so I have a responsibility to kind of check off with all those levels of government to make sure that taxpayer dollars are being funded in the way that it's intended. And recently on the grant forms for the state, they've added provisions. You know, it was only 2 years ago, I think, not even 2 years ago, when the state just stopped all funding for the arts across the board because, I don't know, some drag show or something was getting funded up in Orlando. So rather than fund one drag show in Orlando, the whole thing got shut down. You know, I don't want to ever...
They never overreact in Tallahassee, do they?
So there's now new questions in your grant form that deal with that specifically. Now, they refer to various statutes and all that kind of stuff. And the way you look at the statute, you know, you may not even be able to have Michelangelo's David shown in the Folk Art Museum. But I don't ever want to put anything on a grant form and then stray from what that might be. Also, I'm in a city building. A lot of people don't understand that I'm a tenant in a city building. They think that I might be the city. So I don't want that to do anything that would embarrass my city leaders, you know, or elected officials or, you know, T. Michael and the gang. So, you know, I don't want to do any of that. And I just want to avoid, if I can, altogether.
Again, there's enough other places to make people mad.
Yeah. At the same time, you know, a lot of plays contain material that I have no control over. You know, I can't do Oklahoma every year. So sometimes I guess we stray into some of the little areas. But by and large, I wouldn't do hair not just because of the nudity. I think our audiences could handle the nudity. But there's 4 or 5 other layers that I have to consider when choosing these plays. And when you add up the sum total of the win versus the loss on all of that, I would just probably avoid that title for now. And that could change next year. I don't know, you know.
So how does a volunteer, someone that says, I think I want to get involved, or I want my child to get involved, or my kids, how would they get involved? Would they schedule an appointment to meet with you? Or is it just, hey, let me just go watch a show or two and say, I might not be able to act, but I think I could help with lighting, or I like painting. I might could paint a background. I may introduce you to Evangelina out there, trying to get her involved. How does someone get involved in your world?
I mean, yes is the answer to all those questions. We do have a tab on our website that says get involved. And you can click on that and fill out a form, and someone will get back to you in the area.
Let's fill it out for Evangelina.
There you go. But many people, just as I did when I first volunteered there, I just kind of walked in the door and said, how can I help? And we still get a lot of that. So yes, yes, and yes. And there's a lot of different ways to help. You know, we have a lot of folks who are retirees who enjoy seeing the shows, so they volunteer to be house managers or ushers, and then they get to stay on the back wall and watch the show during that thing. So, which is different than the carpenters, which are special. You know, every Tuesday we have a carpenters club that comes by, and these guys work on the sets and do all that kind of stuff, along with our 2 staff members that work on that full time. And then, of course, actors we post auditions for that. So,
have you become a better carpenter throughout your life now? Have you learned to build stuff that you never knew you could do? Are you good with tools?
I'm pretty handy. I've always been pretty handy. But, yeah, of course. Yeah, you learn everything you do. You learn something. You learn something new. So I enjoy making props. I enjoy making sets, but I don't have a lot of time to do it.
That's not your job.
Yeah, I
if
usually,
you're doing that, you're not doing the bigger picture.
I'll bop in maybe on the last week before we go up. I'll see if anybody needs any help, but I think mostly they want to keep me away.
Okay. So is the director kind of in charge of that show and all that goes with it? Is that how a theater would work if you decide, hey, we're going to put on XYZ show and Eli's going to be the director? Does Eli then put together the team of volunteers that says, this is what I want the set to look like? Or does Eli just deal with the actors? Or who's kind of in charge of the whole thing?
I will hire a production team for each show.
Okay.
So we have Young Frankenstein coming up this summer.
I want to go see that.
All right. So they just finished auditions last week. We're now cast for auditions. But Sarah Catherine Barnes, I hire the director. I hire the stage manager. I hire the music director. I hire the choreographer. I hire the set designer, and any other positions that prop makers, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So I have the team that's established for that. Probably a year before we go into it,
wow,
they'll start conceptualizing what they think that show's going to look like. And we'll have a kickoff. We'll have a kickoff breakfast with all of the production teams for all of the shows that happen over the summer before we start getting into the next one. The early work is probably with the costume designers, the scenic designers, the director, the stage manager, and the music director, where they start talking about what this show is going to look like. So they agree on kind of a look. Now, we are always we're remounting Broadway shows, but often we're remounting Broadway shows in a very different way than they've done it on Broadway. If anybody saw Frozen, you'll know that, for example, Frozen on Broadway was done with all these LED screens and all that. We did it very differently. So
wasn't my brother Brad Elsa in that or something?
No, he was your brother Brad was Elsa in a lip sync battle that we did for charity. Yeah, you were a Blues Brother, I think, on the same.
Brother, I was playing the guitar.
Yeah, you're on the same show.
The things we do for charity and the things we do for the community.
But Brad has dressed up in that Elsa costume several times since then.
I know, that's the disturbing part about it.
So anyway, it probably about a year before they start working on it. It takes auditions happen roughly about 9 weeks when you start getting the cast and everybody together beforehand. And the set building can take place. Sometimes it takes place before. Sometimes we look and see if there's things that we can repurpose instead of having to build from scratch. For example, I think the upcoming Frankenstein's castle, part of the exterior of the Frankenstein's castle that we'll have in Young Frankenstein was also the Wicked Witch of the West castle when we did Wizard of Oz.
Okay.
We change it, it gets a different treatment and everything,
Right.
but the superstructure, we can identify. That's why we start working so far in advance, because we can identify certain pieces and parts that maybe we can shift. Oh, that thing that we did there, that wagon, we can use for something else over here. So the scenic designers, the carpenters, everybody, they start working way out. So, and then we take it all the way through the process, and then the actors work all the way up until tech week, and then kind of the focus shifts on adding all of the various layers of the show to what they've put together. So we add the lights, we add the scenic elements on the stage. They're mostly rehearsing in a rehearsal room,
right,
until the other show closes. Then we start building their set right there for them. So we add scenic elements, we add the costumes, we add the lights, finally we do a final rehearsal where we invite an audience, and then we're able to open. So a year out for the production team, and then 6 weeks out or 9 weeks out for the people who are going to actually be in the show.
So how do you identify talent? Is that your job? Or if you see a production somewhere else, say, hey, I want to take down Mary Smith or John Doe's name because he might be good in something we're thinking about? Or is it you call the director and say, hey, you might want to check out this young lady or this young gentleman?
Ish. I would never.
There's nothing hard and fast in your life.
I would never precast a show,
Oh, okay.
Never, ever, ever. All the shows are cast in the auditions.
Okay.
And they are cast not by me. I don't go to the
Right.
auditions. They're cast by the director and music director and choreographer, essentially, in a collaboration to find out what we could get. Now, I will say I go and see as much as I can everywhere, and I write a lot of fan notes when I see something that someone I think is really spectacular, within a 50-mile radius. But mostly our talent comes to us through
your reputation,
through our auditionals, and it's really special. It's hard to put into words. The resources that Theater Winter Haven have is just unparalleled, because we are a community theater, and most of our labor force is through volunteers.
Right.
Then we were able to invest in an infrastructure that is unlike things you can find almost anywhere in the country. So the technology that we have in that building, the level of professionals that we're able to put on the directing team, the music directing team, the lighting team, on our main stage, we are always backed by a live orchestra with real people playing real instruments. Where we are able to put our money is in the production itself, which I think is so rare. Even when you see the traveling shows that go to the various, the Strasses or the Dr. Phillips Center, and they all have to fit on a truck, and it's modular and all that. We build everything right in place. So I think we're able to do things that people can't do most places. And because we have nearly 5,000 subscribers, we have a pretty good foundation.
But I think part of that is, you said it earlier, is you view your job as an audience member, more or less.
Right.
You want to be entertained when the show's on, and that's how you approach it. You don't approach it from a technical side, maybe, or someone hitting their blocks or marks or whatever the word was that you were saying. You think of it as, what is the experience going to be for the audience member?
Yeah, I want everybody to walk out delighted every single time they come to Theater Winter Haven. I just want them to be amazed that this exists in their community.
I've done that the shows that I go to, and I'm not that regular of a goer, but I'll do better now.
I've been meaning to talk to you about that.
Apparently, I'm going to be doing better. I'll drag Eli. We'll come to a show. Do you have a children's theater? Is that a real thing, or like something where you just have shows for kids? Is it like, hey, we do it just during the summer? Tell us a little bit about the children's theater.
Yeah, I mean, if you think of our main stage and our our productions that you may know of as the heart of what we do.
Right.
Is the tent.
And this is the Advent Health Center field
Advent Health
house.
Center, yeah. We have 3 stages in there. And while our heart is in these main stage productions and our Norman and Linda second stage productions, the soul is in everything that we do for our kids. So we always have a spring show that features our kids.
Okay.
We always have a fall show that features our kids, a junior show, junior productions. We do our Penguin Project, which is theater for kids with developmental and physical disabilities.
For them to be as audience members or for them to interact?
No, they're
and be
in the show.
They're in the show.
They're in the show.
Okay, so you just create an environment where they can succeed and...
The Penguin Project is a nationwide program.
Okay.
We're one of 2, I think, affiliates in Florida. So it was developed by a child psychologist, and it's specifically for kids with developmental and or physical disabilities, where they're paired with a student mentor, and we put on a full-blown production. We spend, this year we spent over $40,000 on that particular production, and there's no hope we're going to get it back.
Right.
That's
part of the community.
That's part of serving our whole community.
Correct.
Whole community. So there's that. That's a baseline, but we also have a homeschool program that we call the Homies. So they do a show as well. We provide the home for Broadway Beginnings, which is Elizabeth Burton Lyons runs that program, that they're based out of Theater Winter Haven, and plus a whole lot of other stuff. Like we have our marching band for at-risk youth called Bishop and Brothers Marching Warriors, led by Lorenta Smith. We have our hip-hop competition team, dance team.
All through Theater Winter Haven?
All through Theater Winter Haven, under our umbrella.
I knew none of this.
Yeah. I think people know mostly the things that are popular, the
you see.
The main stage shows and
Right.
the second stage shows. But there's a whole host of other things. A community choir, we have a community big band, all of this running out of Theater Winter Haven all the time.
Has this been going on for a long time?
Yeah, we've been
I never knew any of this.
Yeah, our community big band's probably 8 years. Our community choir is about 8 years old. Our community big band's 3 years old. We have the Act 4 Players, which is a group of senior citizens that go into nursing homes and perform there. We have a thing called Drama Time Live, which went into every second grade and helped teachers with their reading programs by doing programs surrounding the fables that the kids are actually studying in school. Our marching band, the Bishop and Brothers Marching Warriors, they've been voted the best marching band in Polk County 3 or 4 years running. The Unity Elite Hip Hop Team, they do national competitions. There's all kinds of stuff that are happening there all the time.
So again, if you want to volunteer, if you want to be part of it, you don't have to just say, I can't act. You can do anything and be part of the culture that you're creating, that anything. You're part of, that the Theater Winter Haven is doing. And this is amazing.
It's a place where you can leave the world behind. You can walk in the door and be your best. If you were a great saxophone player in high school and you're now 63, we got a place for you.
Can you juggle, Eli?
No, I cannot juggle.
I can teach you, Eli.
He can paint. He can run a board. Maybe he can be in the production side of things.
There you go.
Hello, this is Paris Richardson, Miss Florida 2025, and I want to thank you for listening to Todd's podcast. Please don't forget to subscribe to Todd's podcast on your favorite podcast app to get notified every time Todd releases a new episode. You won't be disappointed.
So you had mentioned the 4 stages in Winter Haven, the main smalls.
We have our main stage theater, which is the one that's been there for 56 years.
Right.
That's the big 334-seat theater that primarily does Broadway musicals. We bring Broadway musicals to the stage and we enact them. So they're the most popular things. We do 5 shows a year, and they run either 4 or 5 weeks on Thursdays, Fridays, twice on Saturdays, and on Sundays. Okay. So generally 7,500 people come to see each of those performances during their run. the best part about that, the thing that I really want people to understand is I talked earlier about how we charge the least amount of money that we can to make sure a whole season to see all of those shows is $115
per person.
Yeah, total $115. So if any of your listeners have been to Broadway recently, you know, tickets there average around $350.
Right.
You know,
Plus going and
yeah, when Lindsay Odom came back to Hamilton, the tickets were $1,600. You know, my daughter went and saw Taylor Swift a couple times last year. I like to joke with her that what she paid for those 2 Taylor Swift tickets, she could see everything that we do at Theater Winter Haven for 27 years.
right.
So the goal is to make sure that it is accessible for every single member of the community. You asked about kids programs a little earlier. It's our commitment that no member of our community will be excluded from the arts because they can't afford it.
Right.
So you talked about those kids' plays. Those are all free. They're all free to participate in. Everybody's free to tack. Most children's theater, it's a pay-to-play situation, not us. Everything is completely free. If ever there is a time where we charge for something, like our summer camp does have a tuition to it, we have need-based scholarships that are available for those kids because no member of our community will be excluded from the arts because they can't afford it. That is our driving vision. So that's the main stage. The main stage are those musicals that we do.
That everyone knows, the big names.
During the pandemic, when we were shut down, it was right after the Chain of Lakes complex had its construction, and we added that and Health Fieldhouse to it. So the city turned over what was the old basketball court to us. We chopped it in half. Half of it became our shop, but the other half became our second stage, which we named after Norman Small, our founder, Norman and Linda Small second stage. So that has 200 seats in it. We have a full season of shows there. You can get the full season of shows there for $75. So sometimes they're musicals, sometimes not. But if you think of the main stage as Broadway, you can think of our second stage as kind of off-Broadway productions. So some of the great shows that have come out of there end up on that second stage. This year we open up with Little Women, the musical, on that second stage. We moved to Hands on a Hard Body. Hands on a Hard Body is not what you think. It's a story.
I don't know any of this stuff you're talking about. So
Hands on a Hard Body is a story about one of those contests where you put your hand on a truck, and the last man standing wins the truck.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah. And then we're doing Dear Evan Hansen, which won a bunch of Tonys a few years back. We got offered it early through Musical Theater International, the royalty company. So that one's happening on our second stage as well. So we have Broadway, off-Broadway, and then across the way at the Ritz. Think of that as Vegas. The city bought that building a year and a half ago, turned it over to us to manage.
I sold that building to the people who sold it to the city. The Ritz has very special memories to me growing up because I was the theater here in Winter Haven. And I remember some of the movies I went to go see and some of the dates I had.
So much. It's a 100-year-old building.
Yeah.
Well, 101 this year. Yeah. And the city bought it last year, turned it over to us with the mission to bring as many people downtown as many times as I possibly can. So we're operating up to 6 days a week out there at the Ritz. So I think of that as Vegas. That's when I'm bringing in traveling shows that are all over the world, tribute concerts, magicians, all kinds of stuff. Yeah. And I can walk you through that whole programming at some point too. But each of these stages has a different mission, and each of these stages does a different thing. But all of those stages are meant to serve the entire community at the lowest possible price that we can give them.
Did you mention the Black Box Theater?
The Ghost Light.
Ghost Light. I'm sorry. Was it ever called the Black Box?
No, but we called the Norman and Linda Small stage the Black Box before we.
Okay, I got it.
So the Ghost Light Lounge is a small cabaret stage. I created this during the pandemic too. There's so many people in our community that have these great talents that want to showcase them, but it's hard to find a venue to do that. So I can't afford to give them the main stage or the second stage. You know, we're always working. Those stages are never, ever dark. We're either doing a show or we are building the next show on those stages. So I can't afford the stage time on any of those. So we built the Ghost Light Lounge specifically for anyone in our entire community who wants to put on a show. I just say yes. I charge them $0.0. We put in all the technology, the microphones, all that kind of stuff, and they're able to go ahead. They can charge whatever we want. We'll turn over
whatever they want.
Whatever they want. We'll turn over the entire revenue to them, the artists.
It's almost like open mic.
It's exactly like an open mic, but
for production.
It could be a production. It can be a concert. We've done concerts there. Okay. We have the ability to record, much like this place here. We can record an album for you if you'd like with a live audience. We've had magicians. We've had plays. We've had musicians, all kinds of performers that come in there. But that's not something that I program. That's something that is grassroots.
You provide the venue.
I provide the venue.
Got it.
And anything can happen.
Have we talked enough about the Ritz, or is there more stuff you want to talk about?
Oh, there's a lot. I'd love to talk about the Ritz.
It's just a really cool place. I mean, it really is.
Yeah, it's a huge challenge for us, and it's changed our lives dramatically because we have something going on all the time. Yeah. Not every Tuesday, but most Tuesdays we have our Tribute Tuesday series, which we bring famous acts, impersonators, to do a concert. So I'm booking out next year. Some of the acts that we have coming are Queen and Billy Joel, Elton John, Elvis.
And these are impersonators.
Impersonators, yeah.
I get it.
So we do that on Tuesday. You can relive all of your favorite music. On Wednesdays, we try and bring back the historical aspect of the Ritz. It was an old vaudeville house. So we call it Vaudeville Wednesday, and it's a bunch of variety acts. So it could be magicians. We have on the fourth Wednesday of every month, we have a talent show where you can go and compete with your talent, like America's Got Talent, but for all of Polk County. And you can win cash prizes for that. Every Thursday, we do Nitro Bingo. Nitro Bingo is actual bingo. We give out $1,350 every Thursday, but it's not your grandma's bingo. There's lasers and there's lights and there's, indoor fireworks and there's smoke effects. So every time someone wins, it's a pretty exciting, an exciting event. Fridays, we do Date Night Fridays. This could be any number of musical acts, but it could also be some variety acts. But the cool thing about that is we provide childcare in the lounge downstairs by certified childcare, by a third party. And so you can drop off your kid up to 2 hours before the show, go out, have dinner at Arabella's or anywhere up and down Main Street, come back, see the show, pick up your kid on the way out and go. So that childcare only costs $15 per head for all of those hours. Right. So we're trying to bring services downtown and get people downtown so they can experience all the great things that are.
And one of the neat things, there's a free parking garage that's almost, it's separated but by an alley between the parking garage and the Ritz. So you got free parking. That you can just park on the street for free, but you can park in the garage for free. Right. Have dinner, see a show, babysitter if you don't have babysitter at home or whatever.
Yeah, and you're not going to break the bank. And you're going to get great entertainment.
Right.
The entertainment that I bring in are people who are traveling the country doing this stuff for a living. So it's not like, it's not even like the theater across the way where we put it together.
Right.
It's just traveling professionals that are dropping in here, and tomorrow they're going to be at a different theater.
What keeps you up at night worrying?
Well, I don't like that I'm in the crosshairs of this, the social wars that are going on everywhere. It seems like the arts always gets kind of a magnifying glass put on it. So,
do you mean for funding or for?
No, not even for funding.
What y'all do? Just
for
you were
content.
Existing.
Just for content. It's impossible to get universal consent. I understand. Right. I understand that. There's never been a show that we haven't done where some people think it's the best one we've ever done. Some people think it's the worst thing that we've ever done. But there is a, as I said, some folks want theater to be a weapon to influence social thinking, and others want to constrain what it is that you can do, and finding that sweet spot is increasingly harder, and there's so much more scrutiny. It was devastating when the state cut off funding.
That was all politics.
I know, but I'm way downstream of the politics, And
everybody's downstream.
And while it's politics, it's real money for us,
Right.
you know, and every single dollar has to really, really, really stretch, you know. That's another thing that keeps me up at night is I wonder, like, as we are trying to keep things as cheap as we possibly can, when, like, I'm committed to keeping my prices the same. I didn't raise my prices this year despite the inflation that's happening, despite the fact that I know that some people who had discretionary income to come to a show may not be able to have discretionary income to come to a show, and not just a show. Last year we did 432 performances between those 4 stages. So I need a lot of people to come again and again and again and again
Right.
to continue to feed it. And also, it hits us pretty hard. You know, I see the health insurance for my employees jump, 20%. And I got to figure out how to pay for that while trying not to pass those costs on, while keeping it accessible for all of these kids. I'm very nervous about the cost of what wood costs and screws cost and all the things that we need to put together all of these shows, costumes, all of these things. Everything's getting more and more and more and more expensive. And I need things to get
Quicker than normal.
quicker than normal.
Yeah, it's hard to absorb it with normal inflation. It's just ridiculous.
I just don't want to pass those costs along because I know a good percentage of my population are on fixed incomes. I know a good percentage of my audience is already stressed for money. I know that it's a core value that kids always have access to this. So I feel a lot of that pinch. And it scares me. It also scares me. You said politics. I guess politics scares me because a lot of our funding sources go through political mechanisms. So, the state shutdown funding, as we mentioned a couple of times, but there's also, we get funded by the county through the Visit Central Florida grants, and even the existence of those tourism boards has been brought into question every session that we go through. The federal funding is essentially shut down at this current moment through for the arts. So everywhere I look, there's turbulence in the funding mechanisms, except where you got to earn it. But I don't ever want to shift into a for-profit model, because once I shift into a for-profit model, then I question, am I serving my whole community?
Right.
How do I balance all that? So that's something that keeps me up at night too.
So I think if you're listening to this, if you know an elected official, tell them to keep funding these things. I was an elected official, and sometimes I push back at funding some of the things because I didn't see the value, because I have a responsibility to the people who pay taxes. But if you see them out and about, don't be ugly, don't be mean. Just say, hey, I really watched a good show at Theater Winter Haven. Please keep funding it. You don't have to do much more than that. Or I watched the marching band. I didn't even know it existed. Thank you for helping. I think that's a wise utilization. And you get enough of those people that chirp in the ear of the people who are making the decisions. And at some point, you get a favorable decision here and there. And it's not just local, it's state too. You have access to your state senators and representatives.
It's even hard to make the connection sometimes.
Right.
Like when you hear the conversations going on about property taxes, how do people make the leap to say, oh, Theater Winter Haven is in a city building, and the city building is funded by, in part, the property taxes that people are paying to the city. Right. So the Penguin Project, which is serving these kids with developmental and physical disabilities, is indirectly funded by my property taxes. Right. So I don't know that it's a lot of, you have to take a lot of leaps to get to the fact that the funding sources for the things that you treasure come from these various
Some do come from tax dollars. Yeah, that's why I just said it is keep putting it in people's ears. The more it's in front of people, the more they realize it. So right. I still don't know what the state's doing with property taxes. I'm not sure they do, but they seem to feel like some of them do. You replaced Norman Small.
Yeah, Norm.
These are not small shoes, no pun intended. Right. He'd been there forever. What was that like? I mean, you came on, we were on his board when
I was on
here,
the board, yeah.
And they did a search, and you kind of emerged to take over his job, his position, or assumed his role, I guess. Maybe
I was the third choice.
Right.
But here's what I'll say.
No, you were the first. They just started in the wrong order.
Here's what I'll say about Norm. He's my hero.
Right.
Anything good that ever has happened, anything good that ever will happen because of Theater Winter Haven, all is a direct line to Norm Small. I'm just a little bit of new water in the river, but he created the head source. Following in his footsteps was actually, I had a lot of confidence following in his footsteps because the values that he created were the values that I shared. I was on his board. The theater was so important to me. I found the theater at a time where there was confusion in my home life. My kids and I kind of needed a safe space. We found it. I believe Theater Winter Haven there's a debt I owe Theater Winter Haven that I can never repay. Right. And it's all because of the way Norm created that organization
and ran the organization.
Yeah. So for me to come in, I was far more concerned with what I can protect than what I could change.
Right.
So Norman, of course, is a dear. We talk probably weekly.
Right.
And he is certainly still the. I always joke and say, no matter how big we get, it's the things that we keep small that matter. Same pun you used.
Right.
So he's in my mind all the time. And I hope we're doing him proud. And I will continue to fight for the values that he instilled.
Have you ever had to fill in a show when someone was sick and they needed someone, not necessarily the lead, but could you have been someone in the background if they could find a costume to fit? Or
there was one time in Legally Blonde where the director thought it would be funny if there's like an airline pilot comes on and does a little thing. So I did that. And there was one time where in Greece where one of the actors had to, it was pre-planned, so I knew it was going to happen. And I stepped in for the weekend to be able to do it because I watched the show. I watch the shows. I see them 20 times.
Right.
So I pretty much know. I pretty much know what anybody's doing, but I don't think that that's ever really the best use of my time. Especially because during a show, when the show is happening, I want to be with the audience.
Right.
I want to shake as many hands as I can. I want to say thank you to as many people as I can. I always stand in the back and watch, and I want to feel
the reaction,
their energy, and feel what they're responding to and what they're not responding to. And it informs every decision that I make beyond that. So I'd much rather be part of the forest than be a single tree in that forest.
Hey everybody, this is your host, Todd Dantzler. As most of you know, I'm a partner with Saunders Real Estate and have been a very active and working broker for over 42 years. I have fostered strong relationships throughout the state of Florida, working on properties ranging from agriculture and development land to multifamily, commercial, and industrial projects. If you have any real estate needs at all, please give me a call. I'd love to help. My direct line is 863-877-2846. Thank you. Do you have to pay many actors in your productions, or maybe there's one superstar that if we can get them, we at least have to pay them a per diem or something?
Never.
Or so everyone works for the same as
every single person on that stage is a volunteer.
If they get a free pizza afterwards, they've hit the big time.
Well, we always feed them.
Right.
We always feed between shows on a Saturday. We always feed them. But we are an amateur community theater, and I want to stay true to that. The only exceptions are we do pay members of the band.
Right.
So musicians do get a stipend, but and sometimes there's a part where a musician is part of the play.
Right.
So they're on stage. They might be getting a stipend for that. If someone is, if an actor is traveling from out of county, we will give them a gas card stipend, so there's not, we don't want it to cost anybody a ton of money, but I'm pretty firm in that we are an amateur community theater and we cast from our community.
What's your annual budget for Theater Winter Haven approximately for everything that you do?
We're at about 2.2 million right now. But that is a very fluid number,
right?
Because we just took on the Ritz Theatre, and so that's super expensive. I was thinking about bingo. We've been doing it for a year and change. We do it every Thursday and Sunday, and we give out $13.50 every session. So we're approaching $100,000 of money we've given away,
right,
as part of that fundraiser. But and we have to pay every single band that comes into the Ritz, and that's new. We're still in our first 18 months of doing.
But you're selling tickets, so you offset it a little bit.
Yeah, we offset it by selling tickets, of
right.
course.
Right.
But we're about 2.2. But it's going to grow. It's going to grow tremendously.
What's the dream show that you would love to bring to town? If someone said, Dan, I believe in you, I want to write you a check, go get us the show that is going to make you the happiest ever.
Well, it doesn't work that way. I wish it did. I wish it was money, but shows don't become available until they become available.
Right.
So like the big shows, Wicked, Hamilton, all those kind of shows, they're locked down by the producers. And generally, while they're on Broadway, we wouldn't have access to
right.
them. We're lucky in that we, Theater Winter Haven, have been doing business with the royalty companies for so long. We often get an early offer, so we get them about the same time that they come off a tour.
Okay.
So, like next year, Pretty Woman is brand new. We got an early offer on that. We'll be one of the first community theaters in the country that'll be able to do that. We got Come From Away early, same thing. We got Mean Girls early. We got Dear Evan Hansen early. So all of those shows we get before. There's some I've already gotten that I can't talk about because
right.
they're still
right.
doing their national tour. Or they're coming onto Broadway. I have a show set up for 2028 already that I've paid royalties for that I just can't talk about because it hasn't been released. That's part of my contract. So we get a lot of the great shows early. Of course, I would love to get Wicked here. I would love to get all the big ones. But the fact of the matter is, we're going to do them all.
Right.
In time, we're going to do them.
When you get them.
It's just a matter of when can I get them. And as you said before, even some great shows just aren't right for us.
Right.
So,
have you ever watched one of your actors on stage and just said, this person's got that little special something, they're going to go on to do bigger and better things. They're not just going to be relegated to Polk County.
That's happened several times, and several people have gone on to do, at least in the theater world,
right.
done some great things. So, I went and saw Hamilton in the Chicago cast right when they opened it, and two of the leads came through us. Karen Olivo was Angelica Houston, and Wayne Brady was Aaron Burr in that particular performance in Chicago. So I got to go up and see Spencer Croy, his stage name Spencer LaRue, do his Broadway debut in Cursed Child on Broadway. And there's a number, Trista Dawson, there tons of national tours, tons of Broadway performers, right. Tons of, I don't think there's a cruise ship that you can go on right now that didn't have somebody that came through.
Wow.
But not just that, technicians everywhere.
Right.
I think if you pulled Theater Winter Haven technicians out of the national mix, Disney would have a tough day tomorrow, and so would Legoland, and so, all of the theme parks and Universal. But it's not just who goes on to do great things on the stage. That's not the higher purpose. It's trying to make everybody a more well-rounded person to do great in whatever they choose to do. Sarah Beth Wyatt, who's on this on the school board. She's a theater kid. T. Michael Stabbers, who runs...
T. Michael was?
T. Michael's a theater kid, yeah. T. Michael's a theater kid.
Well, that explains a lot.
So my daughter, who is now an industrial engineer for Microsoft and helping manage the Adobe accounts, those are all... I mean, there's...
Is she still doing theater? Do any of your kids still do any of the theater?
Oh, no. That was for a moment in time.
Okay.
But it does inform...
But they could do community theater wherever they are if their life would allow it.
They could. And most of my kids, with the exception of my daughter Morgan, were more backstage oriented than onstage oriented. But I think it makes me equally proud to know that people who came out of Theater Winter Haven are a great teacher in Polk County or elsewhere, or are just doing great in their lives. Right. Because that's really what it's about, more so than preparing them for stardom.
Do you know Christian Abbott?
Yeah.
He was on our podcast in the fall. I forgot what episode it was. A wonderful guest.
Yeah, he's stage managed a couple of things for us. And he's now Disney Cruise Lines.
Yeah, he lives over here. Great guest. I had Sarah, one of the people that sits in the Devil's Triangle with Eli, that torments him every day. She knew him from before, and she got him on the show for us, and it was really good. So,
he's a great guy. He's working with his coffee stuff too. Right?
Yeah. So I mentioned about the trailer critters.
Oh, hitch critters.
Hitch critters. Can we talk about that for just a minute? I found that just absolutely fascinating that you had invented something so simple, so ingenious, but no one ever thought of it, which I guess is what inventions really do. Tell us a little bit about that, and then we'll kind of wrap it up if you got another minute or two for us.
Yeah, of course. My last job at Disney, I was in marketing, and I worked in a division called Destination Disney, which was doing a lot of data analysis and then kind of building product around that business intelligence. And following that, I got poached by a product development company and got to learn my way around how stuff gets made. And I got to go to China a couple of times and view factories. And those guys sold their company, and in came another management team. And one of the guys I worked with, who's an artist, and I said, maybe it's time for us to strike out on our own. We kind of know about this. So
we know everything. We know everything. Yeah, we don't need those stinking rules.
Yeah. So we did just that. And, Hitch Critters was data driven. I knew that the top three... Hitch Critters, by the way, is a ball hitch cover for your truck that plugs into your trailer lights. Mm-hmm. And it looks like a fish.
It is such a wonderful idea.
Or a deer. We had 8 or 9 different versions of what these things were. And then when you hit your brakes, they animate. So the fish would flop its tail. Right. The deer had a target on its chest that would light up, and it would raise his arms. And so that was the first thing that we did. But it was data-driven. We knew that the number 1 selling car in America was the F-150 series. The number 2 selling car was the Chevy Silverado series. The number 3 selling car was the Dodge Ram series. We knew that there were 90 million of those vehicles on the road at that time. I had also had an in with a Bass Pro gift buyer, and I also knew from my previous work a Walmart buyer that bought for automotive and in the trailer decision. So I was like, I got to come up with an idea that I can talk to both of these guys about.
Right.
And so Hitch Critters was born from that. We made a prototype in our garage. Cost me $600 to build that prototype. I took it to Walmart, and I walked out of that meeting with an order for 48,000 units. So then I got on a plane.
By next Tuesday.
No, not by next Tuesday.
Right.
I had several months, but so then I hopped on a plane and we figured out how to make it, and we knew because we knew what the price was going to be at Walmart because we kind of had the order.
So they set the price and you back into that price.
That's how I did it for this one. Yeah, okay. We knew we had done some data analysis for Walmart too from a previous job, so I knew what the sweet spot was. So we went and we made hitch critters, and we did the fish and the deer in the first season, and then there was a duck, and there was a horse, and there was for Tractor Supply we made a cow, and for Gander Mountain
Tell me
we made
Dean
a
wouldn't
goose.
have several of these on the back of his car.
Yeah, and then we made the truck antlers, which were you still see them around Christmas time. They roll up in your window and they're
Right.
antlers. Ours are the initial version. They weren't the plush ones. They were the realistic version
Right.
of a set of antlers that would roll up into your window. So, and those took off too. And then we started doing some private labeling stuff. So for U-Haul, I made model cars of all their trucks with the super graphics. For Best Buy, I made a gift card dispenser that you put the gift card in, you push a button, it pop out, and it would play music and all this kind of stuff. So we had a number of different clients that we were working on. I sold that company in like 2012, but I had to work for it for 3 years.
Right.
Don't do that. That's my recommendation. Don't sell your company and then
Sell it and be done?
Sell it and be done, because that was the only 3 years of my life where I felt like I was working.
Right.
So oddly, after those 3 years were done and I was no longer obligated working there, was when Norman retired and that whole process started. So that's kind of what led me into there. But
And were you living down here at the time of all this, or
I lived in Auburndale.
At Auburndale,
Yeah.
Okay. How many units did you sell, if you don't mind me? You don't tell me how much you sold or made, but I'm just wondering how many units you sold.
Close to 400,000 units.
Goodness gracious! And was this about the time Billy Big Mouth Bass was going?
After.
After.
I used
So Billy was the
Billy was
trailblazer.
the trailblazer. In fact, I cut up a lot of Billy basses to try and figure out how to make my gearbox. And but that was
one for my son.
That was I used that as kind of a selling point
Right.
when I went into Walmart, because those guys, I think they sold 100 million units of that thing. They
Lord.
sold a lot of those. A
You
lot of
know
those.
what we're
Billy
even
basses.
talking about, Eli?
Is that the fish that sings and it flaps on the wall?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it.
That'll be your Christmas present this year if I can still find one. The heck with all this jelly you've been hoarding
From Gemmy. Gemmy was the company that made it.
Gemmy.
Gemmy. Yeah.
Gemmy. Okay. Yeah. Well, is there anything that I haven't asked you about today? I mean, we could keep going on and on. I find the theater absolutely incredibly interesting, even though it's not the world I normally inhabit. But
No, I
the
mean,
community theater seems like it is so integral to the heart of Winter Haven, to the heart of any community that's got someone that's highly functioning like we are.
yeah, I think we are really lucky in that we have such great support from the city of Winter Haven, such great support from the city of Winter Haven. And I would encourage everybody, we live in a world of screens. Put the screen down for a couple hours.
Absolutely.
Come on out and see what we do. Right now we're doing Beetlejuice Jr. I don't know when this will come out. We got one more week of Beetlejuice Jr. But the kids' performances are on par with anything that you're going to see anywhere. It's a great way. It's not a lot of money. It's not a lot of money for a night out. We work really hard to keep it low cost, and I promise you won't regret it.
So if someone wants to be a subscriber or a benefactor, I'm not sure what the correct words are. If they want to be a patron, I think maybe is the right word. Do they go to your website where it says, how can I be involved? Or, hey,
Well, if you just want to buy tickets, yeah, you can go to our website and do that. If you want to make a donation, there's also a button that you can click that says make a donation.
we got some great people that listen to the podcast. So,
Hey, hi everybody. If you want to make a donation,
Yeah. I mean, sell it while we got it. I mean,
Yeah.
So, I mean, there are ways to get involved, and
there is always a way to get involved, and there's so much you can do. If you know how to sew, you can help us make costumes. If you know how to build, you can help us build sets. If you
can paint, you can paint.
all that, everything, and all ages too. We have kids that are 8, 9 years old up in the fly lofts that are running the spotlights. We start them early.
They don't bounce so very hard.
Yeah, yeah.
But if you want to be part of a group, part of a community, it sounds like what a great community to be a part of.
Yeah.
As everyone's accepting, everyone's bringing you in, and you never know where your talents and your skills may take you. I think that's one of the great things is you may discover something that you didn't know that you could do.
Yeah, and you're going to get exposed to people that you would not get exposed to otherwise, because when you go in there, everything else kind of sheds away.
Right.
We don't care about anything else. All you're doing is working on this one thing that brings everybody together. So there's no need to focus on the things that might pull us apart. We can just focus on the things that bring us together.
So my last question is, what kind of music do you like?
I'm a yacht rock kind of guy.
A what?
Yacht rock, James Taylor, Simon and Garfunkel.
Okay.
I like a little Meatloaf too.
Okay. So I'm trying to introduce more music, but I don't have the money to buy any music. But so if you're like a James Taylor fan, my brother listened to that when I was young. Pull out a James Taylor album, go on YouTube, and Sweet Baby James, what an incredible album. That was one of my favorite. And pull your baby a little bit closer to you.
I'm lucky because everybody I like, I just book an act and I can watch the whole. I just sit there and watch the whole show. Yeah.
I love it. Well, Dan, thank you for coming on. You're an incredible guest. You do incredible work for the community from your leadership, but you also include so many people in, and that's what I think makes the community part of the community theater so vital. And thank you for coming, and thank you for all you do for Winter Haven and Polk County.
I appreciate you having me.
All right. So if you enjoyed this episode, everyone, I hope you'll tune in next time. We've got great guests coming up, and it was a pleasure today, and I look forward to seeing you next time on Todd's Podcast. Thank you for listening to Todd's Podcast. This has been your host, Todd Dantzler. If you enjoyed today's episode, please don't forget to rate, review, follow, and subscribe to Todd's Podcast on your favorite podcast app. If you have any questions for me, suggestions for future guests, or are interested in sponsorship opportunities for our podcast, please just fill out the contact form on my website, todddantzler.com. I look forward to hearing your questions and feedback, and please take care.